Welcome to another episode of Learning Happy Hour. I'm your host, Renan. This is Season 1, Episode 4, where today I'm joined by a special guest here in Melbourne again. We're meeting with Jonathan Cardenas. So, welcome to the team. Well, you're already on the team. Welcome to the episode.
Thanks, Renan.
It's great to hang out with you over the last couple of days and talk all things Prisma SDWAN, which is what this episode is going to be all about. So if you've got any experience with Prisma SDWAN, we'll be covering some of the ins and outs of like why it exists as a product, what it's trying to combat, and some of the ins and outs of it. We do have a full course on the Prisma SDWAN product. It's the EDU 238. It's a 5-day course. I haven't had the privilege of attending it myself. I definitely don't deliver it. So I've got lots to learn about the SD-WAN world. So before we kick into it, Jonathan, please tell us about yourself, who you are, and anything you want to share.
Yeah, so Jonathan Cardenas, JC for those that work with me. I joined Palo Alto Networks at the end of 2020, and I work as a core SE or portfolio SE for the BFSI segment in Victoria, in Melbourne. BFSI, for those that don't know, so banking, financial services, and insurance. So that's kind of my little patch that we look at.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and before this, I used to work in a service integrator, consulting, support, and all of that. So it's been, through all the stages. Yeah. So here I am now. So I'm a pre-sales engineer.
And how long have you been at Palo Alto Networks?
Since the end of 2020.
Right.
So November 2020.
So mid-COVID, basically. Well,
Kinda,
I don't know,
yeah,
of COVID, in COVID.
It depends where you live.
Okay, fair enough. During that era.
Yeah.
Awesome. And that's similar, we were talking about this the other day, but similar to when I joined actually. I think it was just a couple of months between us, yeah.
Yep.
Well, awesome. And we've met a few times over the years as well. Well, mostly actually over Zoom and random Slack stuff.
Interactions,
yeah. It's been good.
Yeah.
Cool. So thanks for the efforts you've put in. I know that you've prepared some stuff for us, and we've got some whiteboards and some consoles we can jump into and explore. So please, tell us about SD-WAN and what Prisma SD-WAN is and why it exists and such.
Sure. So, I know you have some experience working for service providers in the past as well, right?
Or working with service providers
service providers, and yeah. So do I. So one of my first jobs was working for a service provider, MPLS networks, right? And that's pretty much where everything starts. So MPLS networks, private connections. You pay a service provider to get your packets from A to B. They somehow guarantee that you have certain amount of bandwidth, which in reality never was. Yeah.
Yep, sure.
It was always oversubscribed, so you pay for the last mile, but then whatever is happening inside the cloud, you have no visibility. You pretty much rely on network performance, and you don't have any application performance, and that was a conversation that in the past you didn't used to have, right?
Yeah.
Just piping, plumbing, get my packets from A to B.
It's a bit black box.
Yeah.
And it was, back in those days as well, security was like maybe an afterthought, maybe. It was more about connectivity and making sure that packets flowed, right?
100%.
So
yes.
I'll share a story, but one customer I worked with, this is many, many years ago, probably 15, 16 years ago, maybe more. It's 2024. Yeah, but a long time ago. I would visit these sites. We were basically doing like an acquisition thing. The customer was doing an acquisition thing, and we would onboard these different sites to connect to effectively a co-location center. So in Sydney, we had a co-location center that had some services, mainly like RDP, so it's a terminal, as well as some medical imagery applications. So these sites, these little branch offices, would have their own internet connections like locally, so whatever random ISP the particular purveyor of that site had. And what we had to do is go on site. I would come on site with like a little pre-configured modem. It was like a Netgear something, that the ISP helped us pre-configure. No IPsec tunnels or anything like that, but we would just go on site. They'd get, it was ADSL back then, and we'd just patch it in. It would connect up. Then I'd plug a WISE terminal or something, so a thin client, into it, and then kind of hope that their medical imaging software would then, over the MPLS, because it was all MPLS, be able to log in, and if someone did some imagery at site A, it would eventually end up in the co-location center, and everything was centralized like that. It worked pretty well, but as you said, as I said, visibility-wise was a challenge.
Yep.
And in the end, I ended up building a pretty good relationship with the ISP at the time, or the one or two people who was assigned to my my customer. And then they helped me troubleshoot stuff, which happened. You get on site, it's like, why is traffic not flowing? And you, as a integrator, had zero visibility, capability, anything. It's heavily dependent on them. They were super friendly, but there were a few concerns as well, which we'll cover, I think, a bit later.
Yeah.
But
well, that's actually a very good example. And I have something here that looks pretty close to what you just described, right? So in the past, if we could just jump quickly here.
Let's take a look.
In the past, you used to have your branches, right? A last mile connection.
Right.
Then that will connect you to some MPLS WAN, and then you will rely on the service provider to do all the routing for you and take you to the data center, for example, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, the data center was the center of the universe. If you wanted to go out to the internet, then that's your pipe. Yes. And there is no direct connection out from the branches out to the internet.
No, and we didn't want them to be honest, because we have, and you've got it in this diagram here, I can see, we have a firewall in the co-location center, or the data center, which would then be in charge of all the URL filtering, and not back then we didn't have AppID, but like what ports and things were allowed and whatnot. Yeah,
correct. So that's where we came from. This made perfect sense at the time. There were no many or any applications hosted on the internet. Everything will be hosted in the data center, and most of the connectivity was either between branches or between the branches and the data center, and that was it, right? Yeah. So that's the past. That's long gone. Not many people do it like that anymore, right?
It's 2000 and current year.
Yeah. This is old school way of doing things, right?
All right.
So cool. So what happens then? Then we move to.
Well, that's my Mac. Let's pause for a sec.
And for events like that, now we have Learning Happy Hour coasters. Stay tuned.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Learning Happy Hour. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in certification or further development and training through Palo Alto Networks, we have a number of instructor-led training courses available. Just visit us at paloaltonetworks.com/services/education, and you'll find ILT, instructor-led training, certification details, and some digital learning too.
Resume?
You were saying, sorry to interrupt you with the great flood. What were we saying? Oh my gosh. So that's the past, and then you were about to jump into...
Yeah, so that's the past. That's how things used to look like. Early 2000s, standard, not many things happening on the internet from the enterprise-wise, right? So then we moved to this kind of second approach where we kind of split the internet pipe. So the service provider or the enterprises realized that the piping everything through the data center was creating issues because more applications started appearing on the internet. Right? And then this little pipe here used to be
saturated.
Not so big, right? So what do? Let's try and make sure that the branches can go out to the internet somehow without having to come to the data center, and they only come to the data center if they need to get access to those applications there, right?
But then straight away, the thing that jumps to my mind is the lack of security with that, right? Because we were just talking about how, it's great to send everything through the data center because that's our firewall, see? And now it's like, how about no? So
so where is the security here? So what the service providers did was they provided a firewall as a service, which sounds like a great idea, but then that firewall there is not controlled by you. So you have to ring the service provider, tell them to put some security there, rely on whatever technology they have there.
So it's not your firewall, it's
not your
their firewall.
It's their firewall.
You can't choose policies and things. You're basically asking them, hey, can you please build a rule for this because it doesn't seem to work.
Yeah, correct.
And obviously then, because it's the ISP that you're relying on, you also don't have a say on the security stack that they're using.
Correct.
Whether it's vendor A or vendor B or what the technology is, you just
see that the packets are going through and whatever application you need access to, it's working, and pray.
Yeah. It's, okay.
Yeah. Right? So that was kind of the interim approach to try to split that internet traffic somewhere else and not have to bring everything to the data center if it's not required.
Yep.
Right. And a few of the challenges that remain with this anyway is all the administration of these routers here, this here, and this firewall here is manual.
Right.
So, yeah, there were attempts to make scripts, and some of the service providers, some of the most advanced service providers, have some kind of automation, something
like a management system thing.
Yeah, like homebrew kind of systems, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Where they like, because if I put some variables here, some values here, it will come up with a configuration, and I go copy paste it.
Yeah.
But that becomes cumbersome, right? Because if you have an enterprise of 100 sites, multiple routers in some of the branches,
yeah, you can't keep track of that.
How do you keep that consistent? Then if we go back to performance and packet flows, right? Stuff like QoS.
Yeah.
So when I used to work for a service provider, that was one of the things that used to give us a lot of pain, right? Because each of these links, for example, right? Each of these links will be a different bandwidth.
Yeah, because it's different ISPs, different parts of the world potentially.
Yeah. So
actually, would it be different ISPs if they're MPLS? Well, same
not
ISP.
Necessarily same ISP, but different last miles, for example.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
especially in Australia, where that last mile can be the difference between a 30 megabit connection or half.
Yeah. Correct.
Which sucks.
Yeah, and then if we're talking about performance and how people used to manage that bandwidth performance with QoS, a single template for all the sites, it was almost impossible to do, right?
Yes.
And then you have just having issues with things running slow because the link is overutilized or saturated.
The last mile link.
The last mile link.
Right.
Yeah, correct. And you barely had any visibility of that, right? So it's the network. The network is slow. But in reality, it's not the network that's slow. It's the applications that the users are utilizing to do their work that is not performing the way that they expect.
Right.
Correct.
But you have no visibility on that.
But you have no visibility of that.
All.
So what do you do for troubleshooting if you were a network engineer at the time?
You call the ISP, right?
Oh, well, you ping.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. So you ping, you trace route, you do a telnet to some random
server
port,
in the cloud.
yeah, and as a network engineer, it's like cool, that connects.
Yeah. So
that's it.
Well,
right?
connectivity is very different to performance.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And we talked about this with Luke in episode 1 of this season. Yeah.
So, right, you get there, it works, but the performance is poor. But like you said, this thing here is a black box, right? This MPLS one is a black box, and you rely on the service provider. Then you have to call them to get like packet captures, run some stats on their links, rely on their ability to move or traffic engineer the traffics within those links.
And it depends on the relationship you have with that ISP and their capabilities.
Correct.
In the example I was telling you about many years ago, the nature of the traffic, as I mentioned, was like there was some medical imaging stuff. And whenever we had a problem, I'd get on the phone, and they were very helpful, and they would be able to do things like packet capture.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hang on. This random guy at the ISP, like I'm friends with you now, kind of, sort of, but I don't really know you. How is it that you're able to get packet capture information that is, I mean, that's sensitive data here. Like, what's going on? But we blindly trust.
Yeah. So some people had that same challenge, and the solution to that in the past was to run some kind of DM VPN on top of the MPLS. Yeah. Which you sometimes couldn't even do yourself. You have to put another router behind because the router will be managed by the service provider and they wouldn't let you touch it.
Yeah, correct. So you'd introduce an extra hop in your environment.
Correct.
And that hop would, for this example, something was suggested, I don't know if it ever got implemented, but was to have a IPsec tunnel, then a full mesh between whatever you needed to. But that was effectively us configuring extra stuff manually. On top of the supposedly easy, everything set and forget, but now we got to do this extra stuff on top.
Correct.
In order to make sure that if he did do a packet capture, which still would be valuable, it would not contain the sensitive data of the actual content.
Yeah. So effectively what you were doing is a first approach to SD-WAN, which is you use the MPLS as an underlay, and you use your DMVPN IPsec tunnels as an overlay.
And those terms come up quite a lot, the concept of overlay, underlay, and I've seen it in some of the other training that we have and some stuff, and I've never really, I wouldn't feel confident defining those two things. You want to give it a go? What's the difference between overlay and underlay?
Sure. So underlay, think of it as the connectivity fabric, right? So if you have 100 branches, then you need to be able to have connectivity between them, reachability between them, right? But you're not necessarily sending your actual application data on that connection.
So would you say it's fair to say that's like what we were discussing before, like the last mile concept and all that, that's all considered underlay?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And then the overlay, it will be your tunnels or your network solution you put on top of it to actually send your enterprise data secure through it, right? So that's where you do all your routing, you control your routing, you control where the packets are going inside those IPsec tunnels.
Can you have an overlay without encryption? Or is that not really?
You could, in theory. Why would you do it though?
Yeah, okay.
So you could have GRE tunnels, for example, which are not encrypted, right? And then just provide some extra connectivity,
like routing capabilities and things.
Yeah, because you want to control something else on top of what the MPLS
but it's still in clear text. But that's not a good idea for other reasons. Obvious ones. Yeah. Okay, but it would still technically be. So I'm just trying to disassociate.
If someone asks you to use GRE, don't do it. It's not secure, right?
Yeah, fair enough. But the definition of overlay, I guess you could say, doesn't have to align with this is the encrypted layer on top of SD-WAN. It's just usually that goes hand in hand. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So, but yeah, in terms of SD-WAN, the overlay is that connectivity layer that you're putting on top of whatever is underneath.
Okay.
Right.
And then you can add controls within that overlay for like how we're routing traffic?
Correct. Yeah, 100%.
Including that split tunnel example you said? Well, it's not split tunnel, it kind of is, where we can decide to go through the data center out to the internet or direct out to the internet?
Yeah, you could. So in that example, if we go back to this, right? In that example, if you were to, let me change this color to something that looks a little bit better because there's too much red there. So in that example, you could say, for example, go the last mile, and then send everything back to the internet. But if you were to do something that is encrypted, you tell the router send it on the tunnel, and then just send it to the data center if it's on the tunnel. So that would be like an early days approach of what we now call direct internet access, where you can go straight out to the internet, or you can send things on the overlay if it's private access, right?
Gotcha. But you could also send over the overlay even if it's to the internet.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, it's a policy or a decision you'd make.
Correct.
Would your ISP, in this interim state, old school SD-WAN, does that decision belong to the ISP who's giving you MPLS?
That decision will belong to whoever is managing the router that is doing the overlay, right?
Oh, which might not be the ISP's.
Might be yours, might be the ISP, depends. Right?
Okay.
Cool. So we're kind of moving through history, right? So MPLS, almost trying to come up with a solution that is simpler, which is not really SD-WAN, and trying to automate the configurations on those multiple configuration points that you have, which are the different routers, right? How to deal with the problem of performance and application performance and visibility.
Which we have none at the moment.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So
and visibility, performance, maybe not. We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And the other thing is the appearance of these internet-based applications. Right?
Yes. Right.
So you need connectivity to them, then you have to start using the internet somehow, and then you have to be able to send some traffic to them and controlling what's going to your data center as well, right? So that was kind of an interim state of, this is getting pretty advanced, what do we do?
Yeah, okay.
And also bear in mind that these MPLS links are usually expensive.
Yeah, it's not just a standard private ADSL link.
Yeah, and there's one more thing with that traditional approach, right? If you have a big branch or an important branch or a main site, usually you have two routers, two links,
Yes.
Yeah, and when I say two links, it's two last miles.
Yeah.
That connect you to your MPLS ISP, and then same model, right? But if we zoom in onto that, what's usually happened was you have a primary router and a secondary router, right?
Yeah, active passive
passive stuff, correct. So you're pretty much paying for two links by using one at the time.
Yeah, the cost for the other one, and you get this argument a lot when you talk about active passive firewalls as well. Why do I need a second one? It's not on. It's like, well, no, we need the second one for, some people like to think of it as like insurance, but that's part of our strategy to have that redundancy. Yeah. So it's not that we're not getting any value out of it. The value is we have redundancy, but there's more potential. Like it's a wasted opportunity. Yeah. Yeah. So
correct.
So what you're saying now is, well, instead of going active passive, I'm guessing you're going to say we could do active active without any.
Ideally, that's where we're going, right?
Right.
So this is the old way of doing things. So you send all your traffic, say, to the left, then you hit your left router, and then you go to your MPLS.
Right.
And this disappears, and then if this router dies, then you go to the blue one, and you only have one link at a time, which then people said, oh, well, I'm wasting money here. What do we do, right? And some people came up with router solutions and trying to split the traffic between the routers before you even got there. So send some there and some there with some kind of traffic engineering, which
gets
again
complicated, right?
Gets complicated, right? Cool. So that all happened. So what happened then? So SD-WAN. So what we call Gen1 SDWAN appear.
Yep.
So people started moving out of the MPLS. Or even using the MPLS, but they wanted to have more control on the configuration and how they wanted to send applications to, right? Yep. Then the appearance of direct internet access because of that need to get to applications that are hosted on the internet.
Yep.
Right? So if I have a branch that has got an internet link and an MPLS link, for example, so you're no longer relying on your ISP having the internet connected to MPLS, but you connect your branch directly to the internet.
Well, that would be like true split tunneling at that point, right?
Yes.
So you've got one site, and then for general internet access, just go straight to the internet. For internal applications just or another branch, through MPLS. Yeah, okay.
Correct.
Which, like, as soon as we say that, it's like alarm bells, because that's, from a security standpoint, a horrible idea. Or it would mean that you'd need to, for every branch office, have like a proper firewall solution.
Correct.
Yeah, that's managed, and if you have 1,000 sites, it becomes difficult to manage unless you use a product like Panorama. But still, it's extra complexity.
Yeah,
for sure.
and that's the perfect example of how we got to SASE, right?
Right.
So, yeah, secure access is the SD-WAN connectivity layer, service edge, which is the security on top of that, right?
Right.
And how you connect to your application. So, so Gen1 appear, or what we call Gen1 SD-WAN.
Yep.
And what was trying to be solved with this? So not only were SaaS applications now widely deployed and consumed, but the public cloud appear as well.
Yep.
Right. So you need to be able to connect to your Azure, AWS, GCP environments.
Yeah, so you've got your own you've got your own applications and resources and things you need access to that are in AWS or GCP or Azure. And then, the SaaS applications have never gone away. Everyone's using Office 365, everyone's using Google Apps, and et cetera, Dropbox. So how do we connect?
How would you connect to those ones? So, and how do we guarantee that we're getting the performance that we used to get on a private link with MPLS, right?
But still with the security.
Right. Yeah, and still with, and not still with, but how do we increase the visibility that we didn't have before, right?
Still with the visibility, if we were to commit to having a proper firewalled solution with the intense administrative overhead.
But you keep going to the firewalls and just
I like firewalls.
I know, I can see that. But remember, we're talking about plumbing for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So don't worry, we'll get to security.
Sure.
But let's talk about how we connect to things first.
Okay.
Cool. So SD-WAN appear.
Yes.
So SD-WAN appear as a solution, as an overlay using an underlay public internet,
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, understood.
So now we're not going to pay for a very expensive MPLS link. So that's the idea. You can still do an SD-WAN on top of MPLS if you wanted to, right? To replace that DM VPN, for example, that we're talking about.
Yep.
But the general idea is I want to have SD-WAN so I can get cheaper links or cheaper last miles and just use internet links. And then I build a private network on top of that. Yeah?
Gotcha.
Then there were two main objectives of the Gen 1 SD-WAN that were trying to be solved. So one was to get automation, so SD software defined. Yeah. So get some automation, get rid of all those different unique configuration points where you were configuring every router before.
Yep, logging into everything.
Correct. Have that controlled by something.
Centralized controller.
Yep. Ideally, have the controller separate from your data plane. So your managed plane and your data plane should be separate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think some of them didn't quite get it right. But
Okay.
Yeah. But that was the idea. And how to get the most out of the the better utilization out of the links that you're paying for, right?
Gotcha. And you can still have multiple links at a site.
You can.
And you would opt, with the MPLS one, it gets a bit complex because if you want multi-links, do they have to be with the same ISP? They would to get into the MPLS, right?
The MPLS link, the MPLS cloud will be a single ISP, yes, usually.
Usually.
The last mile you can have it with different service providers.
Okay, I get you. Okay.
Yeah, and that will give you like geography redundancy and circuit redundancy and all of this.
Yeah, right.
But you terminate on your backbone will be your
single
MPLS
single
ISP. Yeah.
Right.
So cool. So SD-WAN Gen 1.
Yeah.
Appears. And what happens? That is the dream. That's what he's saying. Okay, cool. We're going to have more control, automated. We're going to use all the links. We're going to have more visibility. But then everyone starts finding these challenges. So let's go through them. So what are the challenges that came up with this solution? So first one is there's more SaaS applications being consumed.
Yeah.
With Gen 1 SD-WAN.
Yep.
Yeah. So you need routers on both ends. So if you want to have a connectivity between the branches, right?
Yep.
These two routers are the ones that are telling you, yeah, this link is good, this link is not good, and they're relying on network metrics, right? And I know you like F1, so
I do like Formula 1.
It's like doing laps with no telemetry.
Yeah.
Right?
That's how I do my sim racing. Just close my eyes. It was good, I think.
Yeah. So you have the bare minimum telemetry, right? So when you go karts, for example, sometimes you get to see the screen on the side, some circuits, right? So you do a lap, and you're like, oh, yeah, okay.
Fantastic, yeah. Well, I had no telemetry when we went. So we went go-karting the other day. We'll cover that. It's coming up. It was really fun. But there was that number 5 driver who kept ruining our hot laps. And were you able to see your lap time while you were driving by?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't have the bandwidth to do that.
Hey, there you go.
I was just trying not to crash, but not to let someone else crash into me.
Yeah.
That was my.
But then going back to the example, so you see your lap time, but you only see it when you finish.
It's too late.
It's too late.
Yeah.
You have no idea if you're braking late, you're braking too early,
Yep.
you know, what are you doing in the corners, what section is better or not.
Yeah.
Same with F1, same with networking, right?
Yeah, gotcha.
So if you're only relying on the bare minimum, and the bare minimum for this generation of solution is we're going to rely on network telemetry. Latency, jitter, packet loss.
Which doesn't tell us terribly much.
Not much, and some applications are better than others at dealing with those network challenges, right? So an application that is very chatty, like voice or something that is real time, is very sensitive to latency, for example, right?
Yes.
But an application that is slow and has
like a bulk download and then nothing. And
correct.
Then
file transfer, so why not?
Yeah, right.
They're a bit more
robust or resilient against those kind of like jitter in particular. Like voice and jitter is really bad.
Yeah, correct. So if you're only relying on those metrics, and we go back to the diagram, then that is just You need to rely on whatever these routers is giving you.
Can tell you.
Now, if you have a SaaS application, how do you put a router here?
Yeah, right, because that's the SaaS applications being your Office 365s, your
Correct.
Google Drives,
Correct. So that
Salesforce.
that application, that is impossible to do, right?
Yeah, you can't just go to Google's data center and say, hey, here's a bit of kit. I'd like to chuck it in your environment.
Google is going to be like, pin my right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Google's going to be like, oh, so I hear you like routers. Yeah. We're going to put some routers in the routers that you have in your router so you can route your traffic back to our routers. Yeah.
So that's good. Yeah. And then you open the boot and it's it's full of TVs. No. Will AI generate that? I'll try and make a Pimp My Ride router, Google Cloud Router Edition.
I hear you like networks, so we're going to put a network on your network so you can network your network.
So you can network your network.
Yeah. So anyway, that is
so it's impossible. Yeah.
So now you're just sending traffic to you're doing direct internet access. You're sending traffic on the internet.
Yeah.
Your internet.
So without that router on the other side, we call it bookending, right?
Correct.
Without that router on the other side, you can't view those metrics at all. Or is it just
not with this generation, no. So because you're relying on the two ends to talk to each other to give you those
to compare the metrics.
Okay.
Yep. And this is kind of like what we looked at with in episode 1 with Luke from an endpoint perspective, though, where we can look at as you go through the hops where latency is introduced, and we didn't have to bookend that though.
No, you don't.
Okay, man. Let's see.
That's good. So,
but in Gen 1, you had to.
You have to, yeah.
Right.
You have to have something in there.
Gotcha.
To do it.
And the same is in the public cloud.
In the public cloud, you can put a router there. Yeah, you spin it up, and then your public cloud that becomes part of your SD-WAN if you wanted to do that. Some people just opted to just have it open up on the internet and have access to those.
Yeah. Okay.
And I know there's security implications. I could see your eyes. I could see your eyes just lighting up. Where's the firewall? So don't worry, we'll get there.
Okay.
So those are the challenges, and most importantly, the dream of we're going to be able to use multiple links at the same time.
Right, which we couldn't do before. In prior to Gen 1.
Prior to that, and you were trying to do it here.
Yeah.
And it became very, very complicated very quick because you're still relying on network metrics.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you split applications? Then you have to make sure that the applications are identified. And then not only that, but you need to, when you do it like that, you need to make sure that the application is flowing through the same routers on the same link to be able to get all the metrics that you need.
Because asymmetric paths would break a lot of applications. You can't have traffic go out ISP1 or even same ISP and come down. You
could, right? But then you lose the metrics. On this generation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because
how would it piece that together?
Correct. So so then that dream of I'm going to use all my links, it's still not quite realized, right? It's like, okay, it's possible, but it's not simple to achieve. Cool. So that is so those are the challenges of the first generation SD-WAN. Yeah.
How long ago was that?
Like the 2010s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's when everyone started talking about. So I remember like 2013, 2014 is when SD everything started, right?
Okay.
Software-defined networks, software-defined infrastructure, SD-WAN. I remember I was doing SD-WAN deployments maybe 2016 in Australia. So yeah, like
roughly around
the time.
Okay.
Cool. So now I think we've gone through history and how we get there.
Modern day. Yeah.
So cool. What do we do about these challenges? How do we actually fix those challenges? Right. How do we make sure that it's automated, that it's centrally managed, that is not only relying on on network data, but also application data, because today it's all about applications, right?
Yeah.
How do we get users to connect to their applications as fast as possible? Right?
For a given application.
For a given application with the best experience possible, right?
Because it's all about user experience, which is what we talked about in previous episodes as well.
Correct.
But this is now we're talking at a site level, I guess is where we're going.
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah, right.
So now introducing Prisma SD-WAN. So
I like how Australia and New Zealand gets its own. Well, we've got some others.
There's a little bit there, yeah.
Yeah.
So what are we trying to do with this? Or what is actually solving? Not trying to do, but we actually solve it, right?
Okay.
So first thing is use all the links, right? And the way we're able to do that, and I'll show you in the console in a moment, is we do everything based not only on network metrics, which we see, right? But we also take in application metrics.
App metrics.
So now the decision is not based only on if this router can talk to that router quick enough. Is let's have a look at what applications are coming out of this side,
right?
And if that application is not performing on this link, let's send it on the other link.
Yeah.
Right?
Gotcha.
And back to the example I mentioned before, where application A could be resilient, but application B is not.
Yep.
Then you can split. Now you can split it. Now you can use both links and all the bandwidth that you're paying for.
Yeah.
And do it real time without having to be.
And that doesn't matter if the destination is another, like the one in the middle here you've got is a data center. So we have some apps in the data center. So it doesn't matter if your destination application is in the data center or on the internet or in your AWS deployment, we call it public cloud. All of those we can do AppID based decision making?
Yeah, we can. We can identify the applications. One cool thing about this as well is, because I know you like your firewalls.
I do.
PAN-OS, one of the technologies in PAN-OS is AppID, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I keep dropping AppID. Maybe not everyone knows that. Yeah, sorry. Yes.
That's okay. So AppID is one of the secret sauces of Palo Alto Networks since the firewall era, right? Which is the ability to identify applications.
Yep.
Now with the integration of Prisma SDWAN and Prisma Access into Prisma SASE, you can create policies on Prisma SDWAN based on the same applications that PAN-OS knows.
Firewalls use.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Right, so it's the same database. So you can say if you want to secure something because you're intrigued about the security, and then we'll get to the SASE world in a moment, but if you want to secure something in Prisma Access, you can just use the same application name on Prisma SDWAN and say, okay, this application X, I'm going to send it to Prisma Access, and Prisma Access, your security policy is based on the same application name, which is pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So now, I mean, in this diagram, we're not talking about Prisma Access yet.
No.
I guess that's maybe the next step.
Yeah. So this is just still SD1, and we're just talking about how you're fixing those challenges, right?
The pipes, the plumbing.
The pipes, yeah. So as you see here, there is no router here.
Yes.
Compared to the other one that had.
There's no bookend.
The little router here, right?
Yes.
So there's no bookend. So that's cool. That solves one issue because now we're doing all the metrics at the branch.
Yep.
Right? And we are able to make decisions about how to better get you or how to quickly get you to those SaaS applications without the need of having something else here to get those metrics.
Based on the application, based on the links that you have on that particular site at that particular time.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Correct. Yeah. You could also, same as before, you could deploy a router here, ION, how we call them. ION stands for Instant On Network. That's the
Instant On. Okay.
Instant On Network. Yeah. So there is multiple flavors of it. So there's big, small, and virtuals, right?
Okay.
So you can deploy a virtual ION in your cloud environment.
Yeah. Okay.
If you wanted to have that cloud environment connected to your SD-WAN overlay.
Right. Otherwise, to connect, you'd just be going out to the internet.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, even if it was just going out on the internet, you could still use AppID-based, or application, I should say, application-based policies to decide which link to send it on.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
So now you can have one of those here.
Oh, okay. Cool. But the advantage is now we can also connect it straight to the overlay. Is that the right term?
Yeah, you can connect it straight to the overlay. And
cool.
One of the other advantages that we have here is something that we call Cloudblades.
Okay.
Right? So if you
I've heard of those.
if you hear the term Cloudblade, it's how we call our API integration with multiple services. Right?
Right.
So we'll touch on that a little bit later. But yeah, you could automate all of this deployment. Your controller is in the cloud, right? Now we have the ability to have some controllers on-prem as well, if that's the requirement, because for example, some government agencies like to have that.
Oh, so you can have a controller on-prem?
You can have on-prem on-prem controller now, yeah, if that is a requirement. Cool. So we've solved for how do we use both links.
Yep.
Right. We solved the issue that not needing to have a router on the other end.
No need to bookend.
No need to bookend. Cool. And we still have all the ability to do everything centralized, management, separate data plane and management plane. Yeah?
Yep.
And that is the SD-WAN dream now properly realized.
This is where we're at today.
This is where we are today.
All right, fantastic.
Cool.
So where are we up to? We've looked at a couple of things. Obviously, the history of why SD-WAN exists, which is great. So we looked early on, the concept of MPLS. We talked about the difference between underlay and overlay and some of the challenges people have with managing overlay. We started touching on security. I don't want to talk too much about it. I understand. This is more about piping, less about security. And visibility.
Yep.
So you mentioned that the visibility that we get and the ability to control using apps and users, I assume, right, is amazing. And it doesn't need a bookend for us to be able to collect metrics. You mentioned the metrics that we've been talking about so far, or at least with the legacy style stuff, was jitter, latency, and packet loss.
Yep.
And then we're now introducing the idea of, well, we can be more specific with our apps. We saw that in a previous episode of Learning Happy Hour too, where depending on the application, we can see a user experience, which in all honesty, I think is a much better metric. I don't care what the response time is.
Yep,
I care about what it feels like for the user. That's their day-to-day. So with Prisma SD-WAN, we get the visibility, like we saw with the ADEM stuff, for these remote sites as a whole, right?
Correct.
And it uses, you call them ION devices,
Yep.
which stands for, what was it again?
Instant on network.
Instant on network, that's right. You don't need to bookend, so if you have an AWS or Azure, GCP, whatever cloud environment, you can just, access it. But if you want to hook that into your overlay, you can deploy an ION device in that environment, and that's made easy because of Cloudblades.
Correct, and the bookend conversation is more important for SaaS applications, especially. Remember, for SaaS delivery applications.
Yes, because it's impossible to book. It's impossible to choose or opt into having an ION device in our case in Google's.
Correct.
Not in GCP. Not if you have your public cloud, but like in Google Drive as an application,
or
Dropbox.
Microsoft 365 or Dropbox or any of those.
Okay,
Correct.
so this is all making sense. So in some of the other episodes of Learning Happy Hour and in my illustrious career, when we were looking at some of the firewall stuff that I did early on, the visibility that our firewalls enabled was like show-stopping. I would go into a client, we'd do a proof of concept, and we do, now it's called like an SLR or something, but back then it wasn't. It was just like, I'll make a report. And just showing the applications that they had no idea were running and how much and all this other, which users was eye-opening. It was amazing. So what visibility, because one of the things you said about SD-WAN was that the visibility is far enhanced. So I know you're about to jump into a console for us, but like, let's see. I'm excited to see the visibility that this product gives us.
So with this, all of this build up. So what is actually happening there? All right. So let's jump onto the console. So if you haven't seen this before, so this is our now called Strata Cloud Manager, which
SCM,
is
right?
SCM, how we like to call it. So you have visibility of your entire SASE deployment, so Prisma Access and SD-WAN, and you can also manage firewalls. But in this case, we're going to focus on SD-WAN, right?
So it's the same platform for what we can now use to manage firewalls. Does it do anything else?
So firewalls, Prisma SD-WAN, and Prisma Access.
Yeah, okay, fantastic.
Yeah, cool. So there's multiple dashboards here. You want to have a look at any of those, then contact your friendly SE, and they can walk you through that. But okay, let's go through Prisma SD-WAN, right?
Yep.
So Prisma SD-WAN, at a high level, what you're going to see is the controller connectivity. So remember how we were talking about, even if you're not connected to the controller, the router should be able to still pass traffic, right? So you're splitting your management plane and your data plane. So what you see here in this case is your device to controller connectivity. So there might be some devices that are offline, right, on some of the branches, which means that you're not going to be able to manage them, but the traffic is still going through them. Cool?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that
so
makes sense.
That will be alerting you there. Now, applications, which is what we're talking about. So here you will see your top applications in the organization, and this is an organization or deployment level, high-level view of everything that is happening there.
So across all branch offices?
Across all your deployment, yes. All branch offices, all data centers, wherever you have an ION device that is built onto that SD-WAN overlay, that's your visibility here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Okay. So
can we scroll down and see what some of those applications are?
Yeah, sure. So on this one.
Yeah.
So we have a SaaS application, web browsing, SSL, video streaming, Google, RTP-based.
So some of these are AppID-based ones, but
correct.
Is there a SuperSAAS app, or is that a custom app?
No, so that's the thing. You can create your own custom apps, and you asked about it, right? So you can create your own application. If, for example, you have a data center application or a homebrew application or something that's delivered inside.
Like the Learning Happy Hour website, learninghappyhour.com, where you can go and ask a question for the next episode of Learning Happy Hour. Please do that. Which, I mean, it would just count as web browsing, I suppose. But let's pretend it did something more fancy.
Well, SSL, right? Because you need to be secure.
Yeah, okay. Fair.
Okay, so so you can monitor your applications, and this goes back to the fact that you can now have the same applications as your AppID on PanOS.
Yes.
Yeah, or you can create your own application. Link quality, so what you see overall on the links for your entire deployment.
So these are referring to the last mile.
Correct. Yeah. So this is the
last
last
mile.
mile.
Last kilometer in Australia?
I don't know.
They still call it, I think they call it last mile.
I always call it last mile. Yep. So this is overall. Don't know. Overall for the entire deployment organization. Yeah. Your transaction stats. So this is pretty cool. You can see what's successful, which is useful, but you can actually turn that off, and you can say, yeah, this is successful. Am I having actually any issues? And you will see here that overall, there's some issues with certain applications, right? Because you're having init failure problems or transaction failures.
Because this is again for the whole organization. Is this then quickly clickable into to see which application has the
100%? Yeah.
Oh, cool.
We're gonna do that in a
All
moment.
right, great.
Yeah. Cool. And then this will give you visibility of your applications that are performing poorly or the links that are performing poorly on the entire deployment, right?
Yeah.
So because you were interested in this SuperSAAS app, let's go have a look at that one.
Sounds good.
So
it does sound like Super Max. You're talking about F1 before,
Max,
and I'm not a Red
Super
Bull.
Max, yeah.
But sure.
All right, cool. So what is important here? So this application health score, that goes back to your conversation with Luke, right?
Yeah,
we have ADEM integrated with SD-WAN.
So do you need the ION devices?
Yeah, so correct. So the ION device is the one that is doing all the testing for your applications in the branch.
Whereas before it would have been the...
Whereas before it would be the GP agent or the endpoint doing the testing, right?
Gotcha.
So as the end of the COVID era has come, we hope. So now the hybrid work is you go to the office, right?
I'm just gonna have some water far away from my laptop.
That's okay. You go to the office, more people go to the office, but you're still using the same applications which are mostly
cloud-based,
right?
Yep.
So now you monitor your health score for those applications at a tenant level or a branch level, right? And you do that with your ION. And some of those stats you can take to make decisions about how to route applications in different links.
I can see straight away, without you clicking into anything, I've got a feeling of what's about to come, because I can see in the top right, you can view by site, and in the center middle there, there's add filter. So I'm guessing that you can do some pretty powerful stuff with
that is correct. So in this case, we're looking at the SuperSAAS app already, right? So we're already inside the application. Yeah, correct. And we're looking at what's the behavior on these applications, right? Cool. So as you can see, we just focus on the issues, because what we're talking about is if everything is running fine, who cares, right? But when this becomes important is when there are issues and how do you get to the bottom of it. So as you see, this SuperSAAS app has got some init failures, right? and we would like to know what's happening. Why is it that those things are happening
when
there?
it says init failure, is it referring to like handshake can't
to the
happen?
handshake,
Okay.
yeah, to the TCP handshake.
And
yeah?
TXN, just general transaction.
Transaction.
It might be lost. Well, you can't really tell, or can you? If it's lost in transmission or
transmission failures is what it is, right? Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, you will see how much data this application is, and see, back to your question in the init failure, right? What's the percentage of the failures that you have in there, or the transaction failures here?
Out of all the traffic.
Out of all the traffic that we see for that particular application.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So now we'll see. We go to the branch. Okay. So we'll see that this particular branch, the health score for this particular application is pretty low. So now you know that if you're getting reports from other people, and everyone from the same branch is saying, "Oh, well, I can't get proper access to this application." So how do you troubleshoot and you make sure that it's the network, is the application, is it on the other end? What do you do, right?
It's a nice number of flows there.
Correct. So
1337.
So now you can go to to the branch itself, right? And as you can see here,
okay, for the application SuperSAAS app.
So you
at
are
this site.
That's exactly right. So we're still on the application that we're trying to troubleshoot, because that's the one that is running slow.
That's what we care about, yeah.
And now we know that this particular branch is where the problem is.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so what do we see here? So we see that the application health score is being
fluctuating,
up and down all the time, right? We can see that the application is TCP, right? Because there's no UDP flows here. There's this many concurrent flows happening at the moment. And this response time is one of the magic things that we can deal with, right? So let's zoom into that one. So we spoke before about how other solutions look at network metrics.
Yeah,
right?
jitter and packets.
Jitter and whatnot. So this is now looking at the application metrics on top of that, right? So if
and that SRT is what we talked about with Luke, the server response time.
Correct.
Yeah, wow.
That is correct, yeah. So the network time here, you'll see is very low for this particular application, because we're still inside the application, right? Yeah. The RTT, or round trip time, it's a bit up and down, right? And you can see at certain points during the day or during the last 3 hours is been fluctuating. And the server's response time as well. So this is something you wouldn't get with any other type of solution, because now we're looking at, and that's why you don't need a bookend, we're looking at the flow for that particular application.
Right.
Is the server responding quick enough, or is the problem on the network?
Yeah. Which is the same benefit we saw in ADEM. But the emphasis here is no bookend required.
Correct.
It's just your site.
Just the site
is collecting, because it's application aware, I guess.
Correct.
Right.
So now what you can see here is the path performance. So in this case, the branch has got 2 paths, right?
Okay.
So,
and
you can see even in the configuration we refer to the underlay and the standard VPN. So an underlay means that we're sending the traffic directly out to the internet, right? Or to the MPLS or whatever the underlay is.
It's not coming into our fabric.
It's not coming into the fabric, right? Okay. Correct. And a standard VPN means that we are most probably sending it to Prisma Access.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
For security.
Good. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So is it fair to say that the ION devices themselves aren't doing, even though they're app aware, they're not doing any security?
There is an option to have zone-based firewalls configured on the IONs, right? And that is if you have the requirement to do segmentation at the branch itself.
That's a great point. So if within a branch we have A to B zones, like maybe a guest Wi-Fi and a staff Wi-Fi or something. Both of them going to the internet is one thing, but if we had a requirement for them to communicate internally, you're right, without a firewall on-prem, what are you going to do? Route it all the way up to Prisma Access and back down?
Come back down, which is not a great solution,
so,
right?
So the ION devices can do some basic zone-based firewall?
Yeah, so they do basic zone-based firewall. The deep packet inspection that you get on a next-generation firewall is not there yet. but you can do proper segmentation and
Okay.
create those policies based on AppIDs anyway.
Okay, so
and user ID.
So it's application-centric firewall with user ID, but not what we know as on our firewall security profile. So
like the next generation.
Yeah, the deep packet inspection parts.
Correct.
Yeah, that's still pretty decent.
Yeah, but it's good because then the segmentation is there, right? If we're talking about most of the applications now being online and on the internet, right? That's why you need your deep packet inspection, right? When you're going to the application, and then you segment at the branch. Cool. So where was I? Yeah. So you can see the performance, right? So you could see how at different points in time the path it's taken is different, and especially on this one. So let's focus on this one. So on this one, you will see that this was still, remember that we're still inside the application, right?
Yes.
We're analyzing the application at this particular branch, right? So at some point, the application wasn't reachable, direct internet, but it was using the standard VPN or the connection to Prisma Access, and it was still reachable, right?
Yep.
Overall, the application is being available for the users all the time.
Right.
Right? But because it's been fluctuating between links, that might have created a problem, and that's why you see that the performance or the health score for the application is a bit low.
So what does the gaps in the direct internet mean?
Yeah, so what it means is, if we go back to this, so the way you create policies on the SD-WAN is based on the links that you want to use, right? And we can have a look at that in a moment. But in this case, this branch has got two paths, which is the internet and the SD-WAN, right?
Yeah,
and we're creating a policy that says one of them is a primary link and the other one is a secondary link for the application, right?
Okay,
so what this means is, this application at some point was going direct to the internet, right? There was a problem with the direct internet connection, which is the red problem, and then we flipped that to the standard VPN, right? So you see that
it says it's a bit hard to read there, but it says standard VPN or direct internet. Okay, so what? Yeah, okay. It's just emphasizing what the column name is. Yeah. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. So so let's have a look at that. So we can actually look at the flows themselves
for each
transaction on the application, right? So if you go back down here, you will see this is my source, this is my destination, right? This is my policy.
Does each flow get a health score?
The health score is for the application itself. But what you can do with the flows is determine what path was going where, or what path it was using at the time, right?
Okay.
So one of the cool things here is if I click on this, you will see the flow decision bitmap, which, if you look at this, unless you can read hex and make sense of it, it's sure. It's like, okay, what is this? You hover over this, it will let you know what it is, right? So cool. I have selected. Oops, sorry. There you go. So backup path in the network policy used, as you can see here in the middle. Let me see if I can. Oops. Yeah, so you see in the middle there, backup path in the network policy used, right? So what that means is, at that point, there was an issue with the main path, and this flow is going through the backup path.
So how do you know that that's the? Oh, yeah, halfway. Okay, halfway. Yeah, I see it.
There, yeah?
It says backup path in the network policy used. Right.
Correct.
Implying that primary was not.
And if you go see 1, 2, 3, the fifth bullet point there, it says application unreachability filter remove one or more paths.
Gotcha.
Right? Yeah. So
gotcha.
And the next one is application performance good path chosen, right? So it identified that the primary path wasn't good.
Yep.
Then I have a policy that allows me to use the secondary path.
Yep. So
I'm flipping this application to a path that is good enough and what we're trying to do is make sure that you always have reachability to that application.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Which is what we're talking about before, about
for each flow as well.
Each flow, right? So now another application might be okay with the primary path, so it can stay there, and then we flip this application because it's got certain metrics to flip it to the secondary path.
Not just latency.
Correct. Yeah.
And jitter, whatever.
Correct.
Right.
And you can see the path that is taken here.
Yeah.
So if I go here, so
Yep.
it's using the internet, right?
Yep.
Cool. And you can see the information for all of these flows, right? So if I go a little bit, let me see if I can change this. We might be able to see.
Mm.
Hold on, give me a second.
Yeah. All good.
This changes all the time. There we go. Here. All right. So let's focus on this time scale here, right? So you see how here it was using this path.
Right. Straight to the internet.
Yeah. And now it's changed to the Prisma path,
Yeah.
right? And that means that at this point in time, there was an issue with this straight internet path
For this app.
For this particular app.
Yeah.
And we flipped it
Right.
to there. Yeah.
And that's based on the policy to decide.
And that's based on the policies that we have configured for the side of the application to decide when to go one side or the other.
And in this case, it's a custom app that we've created.
In this case, it's a custom app we created.
That's pretty good.
It's the same thing for any predefined app.
Yeah, same logic applies.
Same logic.
But the fact that you can create a custom app, to create a custom app, is it the same method that we would use on a firewall? Or a bit different?
It's a bit different. So you can define applications based on domain destinations. You don't have to create a signature for the application itself as you do on the firewall.
So it's easy,
But
or
it's
easier.
It's easier to,
Yeah.
to define what that application is going to look like.
Right, okay. So we could make one for learninghappyhour.com.
100%.
And we'll close that up.
And then you just put it and make sure that it's always available.
Yeah. Okay, I understand.
Cool. So this is what we're talking about, the visibility on the applications themselves, right? The relation with ADEM. So all of this is coming from ADEM. Cool. Let's go back to the application details.
And this would just be, you said the relationship with ADEM. Do we have a view that combines both the application health / performance for both remote users and sites?
We do. So that's part of the dashboards. Let me see if I can show you. As part of the SASE Health.
Right. So this should include everything, both
So
users and...
Yeah, so if you have a deployment that has got Prisma SDWAN and Prisma Access, which is then Prisma SASE, right? You'll see here, in this case, it's 0, but
sites
there you go.
and users.
Yeah, so see global protect users, and you see an overall experience for the users, and sites, and you see the experience for the sites.
And then you could, I assume, filter this by application as well.
Correct.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So you can go there and have a look at the sites per application, and that will give you the visibility of what is happening at each of the sites, and if there's issues with those sites. Right? So let's go back to this one.
Yep.
Let's go to a particular branch. There's another cool stuff talking about okay. Right. So there's also correlation of events. So we're talking about troubleshooting, right?
Yes.
So how to make your life easier with troubleshooting. So if you think about a network issue, a single BGP flap or a single link that is down might cause multiple alerts in many different sites. And so how do you deal with each of those alerts, and how do you know if they're correlated, right? So if you come here to instance an alert, you'll see these are actually instances, they're not alerts.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. So, okay, so let's go and say Sydney site connectivity is degraded. So
this is sounding very much like some of our Cortex product capabilities here.
Similar, right. So what happens here? You can see there are flapping events, right? There's impact in this particular branch. But look at this. It's telling you I have different events that have happened that I can correlate, and I know that all of these alerts are because of the same event.
And that's done automatically by a correlation engine of sorts.
Correct. So that is done automatically for you.
Okay,
right?
there's a correlation ID.
So now you don't have to be dealing with each of the
with 20 logs.
each of the alerts individually, right? So that is done.
This falls under the AI ops category, right?
It does, yeah. It does into the ADEM AI ops kind of how do we make sure that you can get to the bottom of the issues quicker, right, without having to do it manually. And I don't know if you notice here, but here at the top, we actually show you what possible actions you can take.
What steps to take.
To fix it.
Which means that if the senior people are on leave or lunch or having a coffee or cleaning the water off their laptop, then anyone can at least have some guidance as to what the next steps are to remediate.
Yep.
It says it uses the word playbook. Does that mean we can have like automated tasks in there too, or not? Not yet. Not really.
That is a very good question.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we will. I don't know if it's there.
Because these are manual like suggests. They call them plays, but it'll be like a step.
Correct.
Like a recipe book.
So try this, and see if you can fix the issue, right? Mm-hmm. So that is when it comes to things that are related to alerts and troubleshooting with the branch, right?
Yeah, awesome.
So
we're getting visibility on per application basis. We're getting holistic view, so apps across my whole environment, whether you're a Prisma Access ADEM participant or whether you're at a branch office. We're getting alerts that can be generated for like flapping links and things. They get put together, correlated, so that from a NetOps side of things, we can quickly identify the root cause of these poor performing applications and maybe even user complaints and things like that.
That is correct.
Without just pointing fingers, but actually have some guidance as well on how to resolve some of these. That's pretty good.
Yep. Now, I'm not going to go into like a lot of detail as to how to create the policies and whatnot.
Yeah, okay.
But I'll show you how that looks like, right? So let's go to one of the branch sites, right? So you associate your devices with the branch site. Mm-hmm. Let's go to this one, I think. So here's where you do all your configuration for your device, right?
Yep.
So interfaces, a little bit of routing, management, all of that. So you configure your device here. Cool. You tell it which branches it is going to be associated with.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and I think most of this actually would be covered. We have a training course on this. I mentioned it before. It's the EDU 238. So we have a Prisma SDWAN class. So I'll link it here for those of you who are interested. Because I know that it can get quite involved, right? You've got a lot of options, and when you talk about the things that you can do with policies and the order of operations and just setting up the ION devices, I think if you guys are interested in more of that, leave it in the comments below, and maybe we'll do another episode on it.
That's right.
Because I know this one's, we've been talking for a long time. So thanks for sticking around, everyone. But yeah, so this is the ION device configuration itself, and then policies will be...
Correct. So I'll just going to finish with this. So policies, the policies is how you control what you're going to do with your different flows, right?
It's telling us as well. Yeah. You need a break. No.
All right, that's all good. So
yeah, we've got a policy here.
Yeah, so we're talking about policies. So your policies have got path policies, performance policies, and QoS policies, right? And security policies if you wanted to, right? So each one of those determine how the configuration on the devices are, right? If you want to do something different per branch depending on the applications that they're using, right?
Right.
We're talking about the QoS, so you can have a single QoS policy for the entire deployment.
Yeah. And you just select it. You select the same policy for every site you onboard.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yep. And if you have direct internet access or you want to connect to Prisma Access as well, then you can do that here as well.
As a best practice, I would assume we're suggesting that if you are a Prisma Access customer, then you should be sending everything through Prisma Access. Right?
100%, yeah. So what you do is we have now a integration with Prisma Access, which is automatically taken care for you. Right. So you just input into...
Oh, so you don't have to set it up as a remote network and do all that kind of stuff?
No. So you can do it with the Cloudblades, right? So you can have a Cloudblade that integrates with Prisma Access. And on that, so there's multiple Cloudblades that you can use, right? So AWS, for example, so we're talking about how you can deploy devices in your cloud, your public cloud.
Yeah.
So the Cloudblades will take care of that for you, right? So if we go have a look at this, for example, all you have to do is you have your access key,
yep.
which is your API key, your secret, you tell it your transit gateway where you're going to connect to, right? The VPC that is going to create for you,
yep.
the transit gateway, and then the BGP that you're going to use.
And it takes care of the rest.
And it takes care of the rest. So it will deploy all of that. Same with Prisma Access. You tell the integration what's your tenant, and it will establish all the tunnels between the different branches that you can
probably just have to select like, the region and how much bandwidth or something. And basic stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. It's almost it's like a wizard basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
that takes care of all the API calls and things.
That's pretty much what it is.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Is there anything else you want to see?
No, I think that's we went pretty deep into a few of those areas. It's really cool. I guess the next step, if someone wants to learn more about this, if you have this as a product, and as I said, we have training for it, fine. But if you are a Prisma Access customer and you're like, we have remote sites, we wanted to maybe start exploring the ION concept, the idea of having them as part of the SD-WAN piece, they just talk to their partner SE.
Yeah.
Local SE.
Partner SE, local SE, account SE, yeah.
Yeah, talk to us for the Palo Alto experience, Palo Alto Networks experience.
Yep. Yeah, and then we should be able to help you with setting it up or showing it
or answering those kind of questions if they have anything like that. Awesome. Speaking of questions, this is a fantastic segue. So as you guys are aware, we have a segment in the episode which is where we answer a question that you from the audience have submitted. And seeing as it's still pretty early episodes, we're struggling to get more questions. So please send the questions in. If you go to learninghappyhour.com, halfway down the page, I'll put a little picture there too. You can submit a question. It's just a Google form. So if your question is selected to be answered on an episode, we can send you some cool swag. There's some really cool stuff coming. I can't show it on camera yet. There's something over there. That's cool. And you got something good too.
I got something. Love it. Yeah.
You like it?
I love it.
Oh, he loves it. Okay, good.
Pretty good quality. Love it.
So our question for today, let me bring it up real quick. All right. So our question for today comes from a Palo Alto employee, actually, Andrew Bird, who asks, is SD-WAN still relevant in a world dominated by SaaS apps? Given that they're all in the cloud anyway.
Yeah, 100%, right? So I think we touched on that. So how do you manage multiple links that might having problems and you still want to get to your SaaS applications, right? How do you monitor the performance of those applications from the branch?
Yeah.
Right? How do you get the better experience for your users and measure that experience when you're in the branch and everyone's working behind those links, right?
Well, not to mention the security component too, because we talked previously about ADEM, the idea of Prisma Access, where as a remote user, we can still go through Prisma Access, securing traffic to the SaaS application. But this means that from anyone in the remote network, from a branch office, whether you have the client or not, whether it's BYOD or not, whether you're a guest at that branch office or not as well, we are protecting them and ensuring quality of service, and from that branch office perspective, using the right links for the right application, whether you're an employee with that customer, like on-prem in the branch office, or a guest or anyone else.
Yeah,
so,
exactly right.
So yes.
Yeah,
yes, it is.
It is relevant. It's what people are doing, right? To have control of those links, to have visibility, and to pretty much ensure that the user experience is the same no matter where people are.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, thank you, Andrew, for sending that question through. We will get you some swag shortly. And as I mentioned, please, for everyone else out there, come ask us a question. If it gets selected, we'll send you something. And if there's anything you want to know, or if there's a particular technology Palo Alto Networks offers that you want to see more of, we can set up a Learning Happy Hour episode and dig a bit deeper. And I get to learn more and get to meet more interesting people like yourself, JC. So thanks so much for taking the time.
Now,
thank you. Last little component to talk about is that the other day, as I like to do on Learning Happy Hour, I want to learn more about the people. And you told me that one of the hobbies or interests that you have is go-karting.
Yep.
So I like a bit of go-karting too. I mentioned this the other day. I do some sim racing, courtesy of an ex-employee of ours who got me heavy into it. It's not that expensive a hobby. We talked about it. It's much cheaper than actually racing in physical cars. But go-karting is good fun. Now, you have a bit of a weight advantage to me, so I'm going to use that as a precursor for what we did. But how long have you been go-karting and an enthusiast in that world for?
I started going go-karting when I was like 6 years old.
Right.
So yeah, there was like a little track close to where I used to live, and I just go like, on the weekends. Not every weekend, just my dad will take me there.
Somewhat regularly.
Yeah. And and then I loved it, and I just like to go fast. Like it really just doesn't matter what it is, right? I feel like I'm getting slower with age though, but oh well. But yeah, so I enjoy it. We have a group of friends. We try to go at least twice a year now that we're all busy. And just different tracks about Melbourne. There's 3 or 4 tracks that we try. So that one we went to is indoor.
Yes.
It's cold and night and all of this. But
that was nice.
So we try to go. But yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of things about the place we went to. Charles Leclercs, Ferrari driver, did.
A couple of weeks ago when the GP
prior.
was on,
Yeah. So he did a few hot laps there, and we compare our times against his, and it's pretty.
They weren't good.
I was going to say it's pretty good. Yeah, sure. Give or take. Hey, I guess it's not even in the same ballpark, but that's expected. I have my weight disadvantage. I'm sure he weighs less than me as well, but you have no excuse.
I need to check this.
Fact check me.
Fact check this.
But one photo we took, he's like, hey, have a look at this one. And this could be you on the top of the podium if you submit the question. Give us a question to answer, please. But yeah, let's check out some footage. It was pretty fun.
Yep.
And what was the biggest challenge we had during that session? Because it was me and you, and then maybe 6 other randos, as they call them.
Lousy drivers. That's what we had. Yeah. They thought they were in a Mario Kart live event.
Jesus.
So,
just without the banana
cars.
peels. Yeah, that's right.
Cars.
There was a lot of bumper carring.
Yeah.
The thing I struggled most with was overtaking. Just because I was telling you this as well after the race, which would have been great to have the metrics and visibility live. That would be nice. But after the race, when we compared lap times and things, just getting those overtakes in, especially when the other drivers aren't aware. And you're just nudge them, they'll learn.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure in the safety briefing they said don't. That was good.
Yeah, just a little bump.
Just a little
love touch.
Awesome. Well, look, thanks again for all the efforts in this episode of Learning Happy Hour. I really appreciate it. You did clear up a lot of stuff for me around what the SD-WAN product does and the visibility that it gives. Because I've heard a lot of the terms before, and we've got material on it, but just seeing the console as well and the life cycle, if you will, of SD-WAN from history, from a historical point. I thought it was really cool. It helped clear things up. So cool. Thanks again, and guys, see you next time.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Cheers.
この番組はご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。嘘だったらそうだったら僕の最後のギフトあげるよ。